In Islam, Muslims believe that there is God and there is creation, and the two are separate. God being immortal, pure, and all-powerful, while creation being mortal, impure, and vulnerable. And so by definition, God cannot become creation, and creation cannot become God. And of course, that might prompt someone to say, well, if God is all-powerful, then why couldn't he become a man? You see, in Islam, God is defined as the all-powerful, the all-wise, and the ruler of the universe. And these attributes are eternal and can never be removed from him. Because in theory, if we were to assume that God could or would remove these attributes from himself, then what's to stop someone from assuming that God could then remove his whole status of being God, and then transfer his rulership over to someone else, essentially making them God as well? No, in Islam we believe that God is one, and that his attributes are eternally with him. Therefore, when Muslims say the Quran is God's word, what they mean is God's eternal knowledge. Meaning that when we say God is the all-knowing, one should understand that this means perfect knowledge, which in turn means that God never does anything spontaneously, i.e., God doesn't have spur-of-the-moment thoughts, which he didn't have before. And if this is the case, then that means God knew about all of existence before it existed. This is because Muslims know there's a difference between the idea of a created being, which in relation to God's eternal knowledge doesn't have a beginning or end, and the result of that idea, which when created has a beginning point and an end point. And so when the Quran says, O Mary, indeed God gives you glad tidings of a word from him, and whose name shall be the Messiah, Jesus son of Mary. Muslims know that what God meant here was that Jesus was given a unique honor, that instead of being born from a father or mother like all of the other righteous people throughout history, God was to honor Jesus by making him be born of a virgin mother and coming into existence directly through his command. But the problem with this concept is that man and God have distinct attributes that are contrary to one another. For man is considered to be weak, ignorant, and impure, whereas God is considered to be all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-pure. So take for instance when Jesus said, I tell you the truth, the Son can do nothing by himself. He does only what he sees the Father doing. Whatever the Father does, the Son also does. This would mean that Jesus was dependent on someone else, and therefore weak. And then take for instance when Jesus said, but about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. This would mean that Jesus' knowledge was not all-encompassing, and therefore he was ignorant of something. And finally we look at Colossians 2:9, which describes clearly Jesus' nature, stating, and in him, i.e. Jesus, all the fullness of deity dwells in bodily form. And of course this would mean that Jesus then experienced manhood in all its shame and glory, which includes eating, which signifies dependency, sleeping, which signifies vulnerability and weakness, and of course relieving oneself, which would signify impurity. Which brings us to our final checkbox. And of course, as stated before, these things are completely contrary to God's true nature.